But speaking of good animation, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Yes, man.
Oh my god. This was not. We're not going to get into spoilers yet. So
Right.
I'll tell you when we're getting to spoilers, but not yet. All right? For the people watching. Just in case you're afraid we're going to get into spoilers. I'll tell you. Um, so it's not what I was expecting at all,
Me neither.
but it was way better than I could have ever imagined.
Oh yeah.
It's less an adaptation and more of a reimagining, but also kind of a sequel. And I'll explain more of that when we get to spoilers. But you know, while it's good if you haven't seen the movie or comic, it's way better if you've seen at least one of them. But you if you've seen both, you'll love it even more. Um, I do understand why this fact has left a lot of people disappointed with the show when they were expecting a one-on-one adaptation, and it was advertised as a one-on-one adaptation. So it's completely
Right.
understandable why people would be upset about this. Um, but don't blame Netflix or the co-writer Ben David Grabinski, because the original writer of the comic, Brian Lee O'Malley, was there right alongside them, making all these
Yep.
decisions. Not to say that you should attack him instead, because
Don't attack anybody.
attacking creators just because you don't like something they made is ridiculous. Offer respectful criticism and move on. But Brian Lee O'Malley made it even more clear that this show follows his vision on IG. He posted a story that I'm going to read. He said, "A few notes on Scott Pilgrim Takes Off from me, the original comic creator. No spoilers here. I personally wrote every script with B.D. Grabinski. I constantly rewrote dialogue to make it feel like Scott Pilgrim, but I couldn't have written it without Ben David. Also, nobody told us what to do. This was 100% our idea. The English dialogue was recorded first. All of the languages were dubbed later. We worked directly with the actors in each session, along with voice director Tony Oliver. I think the anime timeline is its own thing. It comments on the book and movie, but it isn't meant to replace them. It's just a new iteration that starts at the beginning again. I hope you can watch all 8 episodes before you decide how you feel. I know it's pretty different, and that might come as a shock, but it's all intended in a spirit of fun. If you're confused or want more information, you can always read the books or watch the movie. Science Saru is the best. If you don't like it, I still appreciate you." And it
Aw.
is okay for people not to like this. I can
Yeah.
see certain things about the story that people wouldn't like. Um, and I understand people. Well, I'm not gonna say that. That's a spoiler. I'll say that for later. But let's just give our non-spoiler review. Um, how'd you like it?
I enjoyed every single bit of it. It again, it wasn't what I was expecting at all, but I'm honestly more glad for it.
Yeah, same.
I'm glad that it wasn't a one-to-one adaptation because like I feel like it's like for all that I could have gone and read the comic, you know? And like for it to be something so new but like new in a way that's like so obviously had like Brian Lee O'Malley's influence over it. It was just great. I enjoyed so much of it. Also, the animation was fantastic. The little references, the nods, the visual gags, just all of it was great.
Yeah, I also loved it. You know, while I still wouldn't call this an anime due to its noticeably Western writing,
Yeah.
the anime influence naturally comes across even clearer in animation. Um, in that vein, I mean, it has an amazing opening called "Bloom" by a Japanese rock band called Nakai Talkie, and the score
It's so nice.
by Joseph Trapanese, who worked with Daft Punk on Tron Legacy, and by the chiptune band. I don't know how to pronounce their name. Anna,
Anamanaguchi.
yes, who worked on the Scott Pilgrim game.
Yes.
That the soundtrack is incredible. Um,
It's fantastic.
I mean, the music's real good as to expect it. And overall, it's just a good time for new fans and old. And if you watch it before the movie or book, I advise checking out one or both of them afterwards and rewatching it to get the full experience. But yeah, now moving into spoilers. The first episode had me conflicted because it was running through content from the book at what's felt like breakneck speed, and I was confused as to
Yeah.
why it was moving so fast. But it was all made clear once Scott died.
Yep.
That this show would ultimately not be following the storyline from the books or the movie at all. Scott is MIA for the vast majority of the show, and instead of him defeating Ramona's evil exes, Ramona has to reconcile with them herself to find out where Scott is. It turns the whole formula on its head and humanizes the exes, way more than the comic did, by showing that Ramona ultimately was pretty toxic, even though becoming an incel wasn't the proper response to getting their feelings hurt. It's still like
it's understandable.
She still wasn't a great person.
Yeah.
And once they were able to just reconcile with her, they were all just like, all right, sure, cool. Yeah, it was a great way to get to know all the characters better, even characters that didn't date Ramona, like young Neil, Wallace, and Julie. I wish that we got more of Scott's sister and his parents, though.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only character we didn't really get a lot of, which was his sister. She was always just in the coffee shop, I feel like we should got more of her. But if you read the comics, you get more. But
we got
and his parents.
We got more Young Neil, and I am always, as you can, my Discord name currently is Young Neil for obvious reasons. He's my favorite. I love him, and I love that he took not necessarily a leading role, but more of a because in the movie he's in the movie like twice, and I don't know. I just like Young Neil. I'm glad we got to see more of him.
Yeah, Young Neil. He has a relatively big role in this show in comparison to the comic and the movie, which is really interesting. Just learned a lot more about young Neil.
He's so silly. He's just a little guy.
Yeah, and Knives goes on a similar arc that she does in the comic and the movie, but this time it's through music, and she joins the band, and in this universe, Scott stays on the band and doesn't just get replaced by young Neil. He stays on the band as a bassist, and Knives becomes the keyboardist, and yeah, that was really fun. Speaking of which, Matthew Patel, of course, naturally got a lot more, just like all the exes did.
Right.
Which him defeating Gideon was very surprising.
At the beginning was crazy.
I thought that he was going to lose that fight in the second episode, and it was like, no,
Gideon's me too.
Still the leader, but no, he won, and it was. I feel like that is what really, for me, solidified that this was going to be different. I feel like Scott's dead. I was like, okay, they could bring him back easily, but no, he was just gone the whole time.
Yeah,
which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then what was it? I forget his name, the vegan dude.
Todd, I think.
Yeah,
Todd something.
Todd discovered his bisexuality,
Yeah, listen, because of I was the thing with Gideon, cool. All the stuff leading up to that, fine. That reveal was, I think, the most insane thing I've seen in a TV show lately, ever. Period. But it was great.
That some people kind of, there's two sides to it. That the kiss that I don't know why I forgot all these characters' names, but the one voiced by Mae Whitman Katara, I forget her name. That kisses Kim. I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name either.
First off, that kiss was very. That kiss was either. It's hard for me to truly describe that scene, because there's two sides to it, where people are like, that was just made to like. That was probably the story's written by two men, so they're like, oh, that was just made for the male gaze. And then no, it wasn't, because you go online, I think people forget that women are also attracted to women, and it's literally two women kissing. So did you not think that women would also think it was hot? Because they did. And if you go on Twitter for 2 seconds, you'll find every other tweet. Literally, when I looked up Scott Pilgrim after it came out, every other tweet were lesbians talking about that kiss, and I was just like, y'all need to shut up. I think because in the original comic, Brian Lee O'Malley, who is 20 years ago, almost, when this story was written, kind of was fetishizing lesbians in that story a lot, and also wrote Ramona's dated, or I guess they dated as kind of like a phase type deal. Yeah. Which also isn't necessarily inaccurate to real life. I feel like people forget that people can experiment and then realize that they aren't
that they're not. Yeah.
guys can experiment with guys and then realize, okay, I'm not into that, and same with women, and like can just move on with their lives, and be, like that can happen. But they
Right.
do change it in this story specifically that it wasn't just a phase, that she is into women, and that they actually dated, and then she, like all the other exes, just ran away without saying anything,
Right. Right.
which is an improvement for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
like yeah, like clearly he's learned his lesson and isn't just doing lesbian stuff out of fetishism, and is actually going out of his way to, you know,
To make it, yeah, yeah.
appeal to both
And
straight men who just like watching lesbians and lesbians who like watching lesbians. He's
right.
playing both sides,
Right, right.
just like
He's
Ramon.
playing 4D chess. You guys don't get it. But I will say, what was I gonna say? It's funny that you bring up like that's most of the content that you've been seeing. I found out after watching Scott Pilgrim that I follow a lot of gay men on Twitter
Makes
because
sense.
Not Steven Stills. What's his name? What's his name?
They
The
didn't even get
skateboarding one.
into Steven being gay in this.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't.
He was too
The
busy focusing
this
on music.
Yeah, he's real
Yeah,
though.
yeah, he has
Uh
priorities straight for
he
his
did, he did,
career.
he did. Right. But no, the skateboarding guy, what's his name? He's played by one of the
Chris
Chris's.
Evans.
Yeah, Chris Evans guy.
He's like my favorite character. I can't
I
remember his name at the moment though.
I've seen so much questionable art of him over the past like couple days. They're really into him.
Of course they
They're
are.
really into him. Yeah. It's funny. But no, and then like the whole thing with like old Scott
Yeah,
and like Wallace's husband that works at Nintendo.
yeah. I thought it was gonna be somebody very specific, but it's just his husband works at Nintendo.
It's Nintendo. The way they were setting it up, I thought it was gonna be like Scott. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna be
exactly. I was like,
real.
some people thought it was gonna be Scott, and then they say he works at Nintendo. I was like, is this supposed to be like somebody specific? Like, is he dating Shigeru Miyamoto? Like, what's happening?
That would be insane.
But like, yeah, Future Scott is just stupid. He's an idiot.
Yep.
Because the whole
And dumb.
time Ramona was just like, she still wanted to be with him,
Right.
and he just like gave up. He's
Mm.
ridiculous.
He's a boy loser.
But yeah, this is basically, for all intents and purposes, a sequel
Yeah.
in reality. And Scott's just going back and making sure that, well, he didn't do it on purpose, but inadvertently making sure that they stay together this time. Hopefully.
Right.
So yeah, we don't need a sequel to Scott Pilgrim because this is the sequel.
We don't. This is,
This is the
yes.
sequel, and I don't know why people thought they were. Well, actually, you know, because I recently watched somebody's reaction to it, and I now recognize why people thought there was going to be season 2. Because it does end with Gideon going like, "Okay, now we need to do this plan," and it makes it seem like there's going to be more. But Brian Lee O'Malley announced like, "No, that's it. That's
That's
all.
it.
That's the
Yeah.
whole story."
And I'm glad that's it, honestly. I'm glad that's it. Because like it's really nice, it's really self-contained. Oh, it's great.